record. All right. Hello, Albert's List, and welcome. We hope you're having a safe week out there with the reemergence of COVID and everything else that may be going on. As a nation reopens or goes back to where it was prior, we want to continue helping you with the summer of hiring. You've heard about mastering the job interview and answering questions the right way, but do you know how to build trust in your interviews? Whether it's sharing that you have the skills or understand what's at stake, building a level of trust is key to getting the offer. In today's competitive job market, that's especially important if you want to stand out in front of the hiring manager and show up as the best candidate for the job. That's why we brought in Anthony Lee, founder of the Heroic Voice Academy, a communications training company. He has an undergraduate degree from UC Berkeley, an MBA from Duke University, and is a certified trainer in Neuro-Linguistic Programming. In his professional career, he focuses on one objective, and that's helping leaders develop their heroic voices to solve global challenges. The Heroic Voice Academy has prepared clients for their high-stakes presentations, including conference keynotes, TEDx presentations, conference trainings, investor presentations, and media interviews. In Anthony's everyday work, he speaks with these leaders about not just their aspirations, but also what they want out of the people they hire. And that's why he's here today, to help you align your message with theirs. In the next hour, you'll hear about the 5-step framework he has for communicating trust. By following this framework today and doing the homework to follow up with Anthony afterwards, you'll be on your way to success. Anthony, it's good to have you.
Thank you, Albert. And this is such a timely topic. You mentioned, I know that in your promotions, the summer of hiring. And all of us, whether we're looking for a job now or in the future, this is a particularly timely topic. We're all very good at communicating what's on our resume, but really the question is, what's beyond the resume? What's beyond the resume that can create the experience of trust? And that's why we're here today. So Albert, I want to thank you for putting this together, and everyone online, thank you for joining this call. We're expected to participate in this, and I will enjoy engaging with all of you and hearing your participation. Albert, you do see my screen, yes?
I can see your screen, yep.
Very good. Now, Albert mentions this is a 5-step process. And this is a 5-step process that when we go through each step, it'll become clear to you. You may sense that this is one of the steps, but by the end of this, you will have mastery of each of the 5 steps, and you'll have specific ways to make sure that you engage in each step during your next interview. Now, agreements for this particular session: participate. Albert knows this. At any time, I can call on anyone on the call. I'll be calling on Albert for sure, but for the rest of you, if you want to participate, if you have a question, type it into chat, type it so that Albert can bring it up, and then we can have a conversation around it, or raise your hand if you wanted to participate in the conversation and go into, let's say, a coaching session that we'll have at the end. The second thing is a beginner's mind. We all take all of our knowledge and experiences into this call. So my invitation to you is take that knowledge and temporarily put it aside, because I'm going to be sharing some nuggets of wisdom. Albert will be doing so as well. And when there's room, you have the ability to play with it and take the pieces you like and leave the pieces behind. Finally, this is obviously an online training. There's lots of potential for distractions. So if a notification comes up, if a phone call comes through, let it sit for the next hour. You can get back to it later, because what we're going to be sharing here is very precise, very concise, and actionable. This is a report I pay attention to every year, and so should you. So LinkedIn produces this report called the Emerging Jobs Report. And in it, they highlight jobs of the future, and they also highlight what are the critical skills for the future. And this is the 3 that they've chosen to highlight for 2020. It's communication, which we will be talking about here, but it's also creativity and collaboration. We've mapped these 3 skills that LinkedIn has identified into our 5-step process. So let's go through an overview of what this process is and how it maps specifically to the 3 skills that LinkedIn has called out. In every conversation, so think back to the last great conversation that you had. It was great because it followed each one of these steps. The first one is listen. Listening for the real question is the skill here. And when you listen for the real question, then you're able to collect from everything in your head, right, relevant information. So that is the skill of communication, listening for the real question and assembling an answer. Secondly is how do you present that information? Obviously, you don't take everything in your head and do a brain dump. That would overwhelm your listener. So there's an element of creativity. Out of everything that I have to share, how can I artfully compose an answer and then present it in a way that's digestible? So that depends on your creative skills. The next 2 is connect. As the information that you have gets ready for sharing and projecting to your interviewer, to an audience, your job is to connect with the audience. And we'll talk about specific skills to make sure that your message and you connect with your audience. And finally, Ohana is the last one. Ohana we use as a term here at the Heroic Voice Academy, and we're talking about relationships. In a first meeting, your job is to build trust that creates that first step in a relationship. And over time, when you create that experience of trust over and over and over, it creates a long-term relationship. Albert and I have been doing that. We met back in 2013, and over the course of time, Albert, why don't you tell that story about how we met and why we've stayed in touch all these years based on the experience of trust?
Yeah, so the first time I met you, Anthony, you not only gave me a business card, but you told me to flip over that business card. And on the other side of that business card was a piece of homework that you wanted me to do. And this was at a different era of your business, but you had asked me to tell you through email what I believed in and what I was committed to doing in my career. And this was only 3 years into my own career, so I had no idea what my answers were, but I gave it my best shot. And I emailed you back. And that's, I think, the basis of a lot of how you've gotten to know people over the years, right?
Absolutely. So when people ask me for a business card, typically I'll say no, I'll give homework. And the people who do the homework, that creates trust, right? We had a significant conversation, and I would love to engage with you in a second conversation, provided that you do the work. Answer these questions to the best of your ability. That's what an interviewer will be asking of you, right? They're going to be asking you questions, and they're going to be testing. Did you do the work? Did you prepare for this conversation? So that's what we're going to be covering here. Is Albert does a lot of these things because he's Albert. He does these things naturally. And through this hour, we're going to be sharing, well, what does Albert do that works? How was he able to assemble this community of 44,000 people? How is he able to do that and go through his day job and everything else he's responsible for? So pay attention. You're going to get homework, and we're expecting that this first conversation turns into many more and into a long-term relationship. So why communicate trust? Well, think about it. Going into a conversation, these 3 outcomes are absolutely available to you. So make sure that you have these in mind. Now, don't worry about taking snapshots of the slides. Albert has a link to all the slides that we'll share with you later on. So let's just pay attention to the content. One is create connection. Every conversation is an opportunity to create that initial first connection that leads to a deeper connection. The second thing is relationship. Obviously, if you have a good initial relationship with that recruiter or the interviewer, that earns you more conversations, more time, more introductions. And finally, there's the concept of presentation ROI. And as you grow in your career, every time you speak, you'll have an opportunity to earn an element of ROI. And it's not just money. Yes, money is available, But keep in mind that the second element, which is support, is also available. People like Albert wanting to come and support your job search journey, your job growth journey. And the last one is reputation. Every time you open your mouth, whether it's in conversation with one person or to an audience, is an opportunity to earn reputation points with the person in front of you. Because this is actual currency. Albert has a tremendous amount of reputation points because of how he serves his community, how often he mentors people, all of the events that he puts on. So keep in mind, that's available to you as well. Now, let's start and talk about the first step. Now, this is something that's very interesting. Albert, you and I met at a networking event, right? And
Yes.
at a networking event, people get it wrong. If we look at the quote here, it's not about answering the question right, it's about answering the right question. So Albert, in a networking situation, what's the worst question?
What do you do?
What do you do? Okay, people who answer that question, they're doomed, right? The conversation is headed the wrong way because that's not the real question. The real question, if we look at all the questions that you have, it's not a what question, what do you do? The real question is who? Who are you? So if you share your job title, your company name, I don't know who you are. And Albert knows this already. There was an element of Albert's character, his values that he shared with me that said, oh, Albert is a young man who is going places. He has a lot of intriguing things that he let me know in the first conversation that caused me to open up for a possibility of a second conversation. So in your interview, listen for the real question. Right? Simply in a networking situation, if anyone ever asks you, what do you do? Take a pause and know that it's probably coming from a person who does not know how to ask questions. That the real question they're asking is, who are you? So Albert, in terms of what you share, right, there's three things that I'll always ask. And if you can give a little bit of a preview before I actually go into a teaching, if someone asks, what do you do? And knowing that you've gone through our curriculum, what are some of the things you share that are of substance?
Yeah, I say that I'm someone who believes that communication is really important and that being able to share as a marketer why something is important is something that I value very much because great things, great products deserve to be known by the world. And I'm committed to the action of being able to write good copy, write good content, and share that with people who care so that we can build a community together.
So take in what Albert just shared you. This is a non-standard answer, and it's an answer that is completely differentiated from all of the noise that's out there. So take a look at this. This is something we call the message portfolio. It contains all of the real questions that you are likely to get in an interview. And as you grow in your career as a leader, you're going to be responsible for answering these 7 questions over and over and over. So just in summary, who are you? We covered that. When have you succeeded? So this means I'm looking for something in your past that is a element of social proof. When have you succeeded before? Which choice should I make? Now, especially for leaders, if you're in the role of a trusted advisor, people are coming to you. Which path should I take? Which job should I interview for? And you're giving them trusted advice. The next one is what. Now, what is more for what is possible in the world? I prepared Albert for a talk at an event called Disrupt HR. And this is where the world of HR, they're looking for what is possible in the future of work. And Albert brought a talk like this to the stage, where the biggest presentation these days is the company town hall, right? Tough topics are being discussed. Budget layoffs, or budget cuts, layoffs, and furloughs, tough conversations. Those are noise because the real question in the room is, where are we going? And leaders who can take the stage and answer that question, they are able to reduce uncertainty and raise confidence. So this is an example of answering the real question. Couple more, how? How do we get there? And finally, why? Why is a question you'll be asked most often? Why is this important? So think about in an interview situation. Every time you're asked something, take a pause and think about, what's the real question the interviewer wants to ask of me? If they didn't frame it right, you can always say, are you asking me to describe the last time I faced a challenge? Are you asking me about what I see as possible for this company? So you can always go back and verify that the question they ask is the question that they're really looking to derive information from. Okay. So that's the first step, is listen for the real question. Step number 2, preparation. We talked about brain dump, and Albert, we've been in networking rooms where someone just goes on and on and on, or even we're in a presentation and people just ramble all over the place.
And I've listened to interview answers from people who go on and on and on, and you're just tempted at the middle of those answers to interrupt them and say, okay, I think I've heard enough, I understand. And that, in that sense, really isn't a good sign, because it means you've spoken for too long.
Exactly. Now, this is a great Benjamin Franklin quote, right? By failing to prepare, if you didn't prepare for it, you're preparing to fail. So let's not do that. Let's make sure we jump into that interview room fully prepared. And what that means is you've collected, curated all of the right answers that may be relevant to the interviewer. What does that mean? We use a framework called the message blueprint. And this is a way for me, my coaches, my trainers to catalog everything in your inventory. So getting Albert prepared for the stage, I knew the inventory of a lot of things in Albert's brain. I don't know everything, but I do know a lot just because we've worked together for such a long period of time. But even with your entire catalog, you only want to bring in specific things, especially for a first interview. And if we take a look at this, there's 9 topics. I'm only going to bring in 3 topics because this is an introduction. In an introduction, I want to know big picture, right? What's your vision for the future? What's your vision for yourself? What's your vision for yourself in this role? What's your vision for this company? Right? That's a good set of answers. The second one is brave stand. I want to know what values you stand for. Now, Albert is pretty clear, right? He values community. He values education. He values empowerment. All that exists within the community he built, Albert's list. So what are the values you stand for? What are the values you're committed to elevating every day you step into your job? What values can I expect you to elevate the moment you step into the room? Second one. Third one, and this is the element that is most missing in every presentation, venture pitch, and interview, is your bold promise. Now, I call this a vow. When you show up at work, what does all in look like? When there's adversity, like there is today, COVID-19, how do you show up? Right? Are you sharing more solutions, or you're the one complaining about the problem? Are you the one that drives people towards clarity, or are you throwing stuff into the pot and creating uncertainty? So your vow is very important. Always make sure that in an interview, you share what is your bold promise to the interviewer. So these are 3 elements that now you've collected, you've organized, and you're ready to storyboard. Now, obviously, you're not going to get on stage like Albert did, do these 3 cards in a row, and you're done, right? It's more likely that these are going to be inside of a conversation of an interview. And it's going to be an improv situation where I got my big picture ready, I got my brave stand ready, I got my bold promise ready, and it's your job to weave this inside of your interview. So let's talk about what potentially you could use for big picture, brave stand, and bold promise. And I'm gonna call on you, Albert, for some examples. I'm gonna start with the general example that most people are familiar with, Martin Luther King. And my favorite speech of his is, "I have a dream." It's many people's favorite speeches. But let's talk about big picture. There's a lot of future pictures.
We went to the lake, right?
And we have someone who is muted. Okay, thank you. So what is one big picture that Martin Luther King shared? There was I have a dream that one day little white boys and girls would be hand in hand with little black boys and girls. Now keep in mind that this is a time of school segregation, white schools, black schools. So it wasn't just physically little white boys and girls holding hands. It really is integrated classrooms. And he looked way beyond integrated classrooms. If you notice here, the faculty is integrated as well. So this is his vision of a promised land, and he communicated that very well in his speech. Albert, when we first met, there was a vision that he had of community. So Albert, take us through how your vision started back then and how it grew into what Albert's List is today.
Yeah, so I think the actual funny story about this is that I met you October 1st, 2013. At that point, Albert's List was about 6 months old, 6 months and maybe 24, 23 days. And at that point, when Albert's List was being created, the vision was to be in a place where job seekers should never feel alone. It seems like it was a long time ago in a much different place in this world. But having graduated during the end of the Great Recession, things could feel pretty lonely if it wasn't done right with your job search. And that was me, because I had graduated from school and I had felt like there was no one to help me shepherd me along in my own professional experience. And so I ultimately founded this community, Albert's List, that many of you are a part of today, because I felt like we should all be there to help one another, especially since things are already difficult as they are. And given where they are now with COVID-19, I think the community has definitely come through, because everyone is very helpful on a week-to-week basis. And so my vision of community, my vision of belonging, of togetherness, is a dream that I would say continues to be fulfilled every single day.
Thank you, Albert. So I'm going to combine these two examples into my next slide. Dr. King, in his picture, there is the value of unity that he was talking about that brought the crowd together behind his vision for the promised land. Albert had the same vision: belonging, community, support. That was all in Albert's mind. So following that example, if you entered into an interview situation, you had a clear vision of the future you were committed to creating. And you also tied that to the values you were committed to elevating, you stand out as a candidate, right? I would have the experience if I were interviewing you. This person, this candidate, knows where he or she is headed. She is a solid stand for these specific values that, wow, they align with our company core values. I'm going to recommend that they get a second interview. So that's the power of these first two slides. Get these two nailed. And if the interviewer does not ask you these questions, when they get to that final part of the interview, is there anything else you'd like to share? Bring these two out. So let's take a look at the third and final slide. Okay, vows. What is your all in? And a lot of times you're going to have a story. Right? How did you show up with your 100%? How did you react when chips were down? And in moments like this, Albert launched Albert's List at the end of a recession. We're in a turbulent time right now. and it's a time for you to shine. So with all the negative news going on, with all of the things that you can happen to hear on the news, you don't pay attention to that. Show up as someone different. Show up with someone that comes to the table with solutions, that doesn't listen to the doom and gloom rhetoric that's out there. Show up as a person who contributes to community, who is always a problem solver, who can see the positive side of things and brings solutions to the table. Whatever that is for you, if I hear that, also, you stand out. So that's my invitation to you in this storyboard. It is an art of improv, finding out where to squeeze this in conversation and practice, right? Albert has these role-playing events, right? Interview practice events. Practice there. Practice with each other in community. Find a friend to practice with. And as they're role-playing questions with you, make sure you find a landing spot for your big picture, which is your vision, your brave stand, which is your values, and your bold promise, which is your vow. So that's storyboard. This phrase I love too, because if you just had, and if I had a script here and I just delivered it monotone, none of you would be listening, right? It'd probably be a boring webinar as well. So what you want to do is create, right? Trust we're creating, but also connection. So Albert, have you ever been in a room where an expert takes the stage and puts the room to sleep?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that everybody's probably been in one of those types of meetings.
Albert, what's happening in that room? I mean, world-class expert takes the stage and literally puts the room to sleep. What's happening?
I think it's a lot of the feeling of letdown, where you're in this room and you're looking forward to some world-class expertise, some great storytelling, and then it's just absolutely the most boring thing you've ever heard. And you know you could have spent your time better if you wanted to.
Exactly. So we don't want to go there, right? What we want to do is create the experience of connection, not just connection, but connecting with hearts and minds. So this is a framework that we use, and this is the one that we coach Albert to have when he prepared for his Disrupt HR talk. There's 3 points in a triangle, and each point represents a significant party to the conversation. So you are in the bottom left hand of this triangle. You're the speaker. Your audience, whether it's an audience of 1, audience of 3, an audience of 1,000, is at the top. And then on the bottom right-hand side is your message. We want to make sure that you create connection on all 3 legs of the triangle. Now, an expert only focuses on the bottom leg, right? They're presenting as if nobody's in the room, and that's why people are falling asleep. So if we take a look at what's possible, there are a set 6 skill sets that you can bring to the table to elevate connection, the experience of connection. And this is both a head-based connection and a heart-based connection. So for example, if you look at the bottom, expertise, right? That's a head-based connection, but that's 1 of 6. If that's the only thing you bring to the room, you're done. No one would be listening. And if you bring all of the 5 other things, imagine what's possible. So let's start with the leg on the left, because that's where you want to start. Not with your expertise, but I want to first connect with the audience. That means relatability and empathy. I would imagine that Albert is very relatable. Right? He shared with you a story where he struggled coming out of school without a network, without trusted advice, and it was lonely. So he did 2 things there. He shared a relatable experience and he shared an emotion. So for those of you that are going through the job search and you find it just as lonely or just as difficult, right? You're now connected to Albert. He's been through, he's walked the path that you're walking now. I can trust Albert because likely he's talking from a very good place. Now, notice that Albert has not shared anything yet. If he just tells you that, right, that he's been through struggles, and you can identify with the experience, and you trust that he will be able to curate good material for someone who's going down a similar path, that's a good start of the conversation. Now you can move to the second leg of the triangle on the bottom, which is sharing Albert's expertise. Now, Albert has a curriculum as well. It's a 6-part curriculum, and now it's a good place for him to share that with you. And you'll notice, and Albert has presented in a lot of places. I've watched him present. He presents with passion, right? It's not just material. Albert cares about the material. He cares that you get the material, and he presents in a way that has a lot of vocal variety, a lot of energy. So that's the 2 legs of the triangle you see at the bottom. That's 2 legs. The third leg. Why is the third leg important? Why is it important for the audience to connect with the message? Well, if they don't, then they're just like watching a TV show. I watched Albert on stage and had a good time, and I walk away and nothing ever changes. That's not the experience Albert wants to create in anything he does, right? So when we work together with Albert, when I work together with you, the third leg becomes critically important. You want to create comprehension, that's the head-based connection, and engagement. So comprehension means only picking out of the thousands of things that you can share, only the nuggets that are useful in one teaching segment. We have an hour here, so I'm not cramming our 1,000 hours of training into one. I'm selecting little bits and pieces that you can take right away. Albert does the same thing. When he's on a resume review session, he's not going to give you all 100 tips. He's going to give you 3 or 4 that will move the needle. So that's what you want to do in an interview. Not everything needs to be shared, but when you can carefully bundle the information that the interviewer can take, absorb, and then share with, let's say, the hiring manager, you've done a good job. And secondly, when you can engage the audience. So right now, like I'm engaging with Albert, we're going to be engaging with each of you as we approach the coaching section. Let the audience interact with the material. So for example, if you're sharing, when was the last time you had a success? Use that as a story and engage with your interviewer into that story. Or ask questions back to the interviewer. You know, does this resonate? Do you think this story could replay itself in this job? So this is all 3 parts of the triangle, and imagine that's so different. Not just walking into a room with expertise, but walking into a room with full confidence that you can create connection. Albert, I'm going to tell myself a little bit because when I was a young engineer, I didn't do this triangle, right? I walked into a room and I only did the bottom part, right? I was passionate about internet security and I knew all the answers to any question that anyone could fire at me, and I didn't close any sales. And it's because I failed to connect. But luckily, I had a mentor and he set me straight. He said, if you never connect with your audience, doesn't matter how smart you are. So that put me on a journey where I intentionally developed these skills, and I help people like Albert develop these skills so that he connects in every conversation.
Yeah,
All
I mean,
right.
I've had similar experiences too, where I go to an event and all I do is hand out business cards, and I'm not surprised that nobody follows up with me for another conversation because I didn't connect with them, you know. So, and it's a same thing within an interview. If all you do is talk about your expertise and why you're the most qualified, it doesn't resonate at home because the people who are going to be hiring you are human beings as well.
Thanks, Albert. This is a saying that it's in the wall of my office. So let's define these different parts. Success. Success means you've walked out with the next conversation. Success means you've created connection. Success means you've communicated trust. So once we understand that, 2 other pieces are necessary. Preparation. Being on this call is part of preparation. And there's going to be some other preparation steps that I'm going to share with you. Opportunity, this could be a chance meeting. It could be like, I'm going to call on you in this webinar, or you get an interviewer say, hang on a sec, I know we only had half an hour scheduled, but I think the hiring manager might have time. Can you stick around for another 20 minutes? Okay, these opportunities will drop in your lap when you're prepared. So let's talk about preparation. One of the ways to prepare, and Albert, I'd love for you to talk about this, is there's a concept called Ohana. So there's the Albert's List Ohana, and you can always, always, always practice with each other, mastermind with each other. Albert, talk more about how your community creates this Ohana support experience.
Yeah, so it's for example, we do the mock interviews with Corey Hiramoto, and that's a chance for you to hop on screen with anywhere between 30 to 50 people live in our Facebook group, where you can give an interview for a job that you might be thinking of taking and hear feedback from others who may want to ask you questions too and test out questions that they may have gotten. And it's a chance to really be in community, because these are people who are going through exactly what you're going through too. I think having that level of shared experience matters so much, because when we are job hunting, we realize, you know, why am I the only one going through this? Why does it always happen to me, right? I've been laid off enough times to ask myself that question enough times over. And in reality, it's the fact that there are a lot more people who are job seeking, and Albert's List keeps me humble that way, because everybody is so willing to go out of their way to help each other, and we've done it so much that people share it with everyone else that they meet on the street. They get jobs through the community, and it just keeps passing on. And even funny, so for like at my even at work, my day job that I have at the Silicon Valley Fortune 500 company that I'm at, my boss even mentioned to me, like after I was hired, she walked over into the break room to get a bottle of get some water, and people, I guess, in the building had heard that she had hired me. And my boss was completely surprised that like people knew who I was and all of that. And so Ohana is important, because when the Ohana is good, which Ohana always is, people become raving fans, and raving fans are what you want in this life.
And Albert, I'm going to share just my observation of what goes on in Albert's List. There could be, and there has been, people who, let's say, just lost a job, post, one post online, and then immediately people jump on, hey, let's have a cup of coffee. Hey, let's have a conversation. Hey, let me know what you're looking for. So I love that happens so easily and effortlessly, because Albert's List Ohana is living its values. So thank you, Albert, for creating it. And one of the reasons why you and I get along is we believe in Ohana. My team, and here's several members of my team, is an Ohana, right? We help people get ready for big conversations. And this is the conversation that I'm going to invite each of you into is, we've been working with Albert for many, many years, preparing him for lots of presentations and high stakes situations. And this is an invitation. Use us as Ohana as well. We're good at what we do, and Albert can attest to that. And this is an opportunity to continue this learning container. Albert just attended one of these that we had, I think, last week, and we're going to have another one coming up on July 22nd. And it's an opportunity to get really good at communicating trust. So what this looks like is it's a full day session on July 22nd, and 4 different sections spaced apart. So the first section, we're working on specifically vision, values, vals, so that you have all 3 of these ready to go, right, in any interview. The second one is shared values. A lot of success is, did you find the ability to identify the shared values that you have with the person in front of you. And this is an exercise to do that. Albert and I, we connected over our shared value of Ohana, and that's why we've been together for 7 years and many more after that. The third thing is we talked about message portfolio. And over the course of your career, you're going to be giving all 7 of these leadership presentations. It's an opportunity for you to develop one leadership conversation and bring it into your interview. And finally, connection triangle. We showed that there were 6 skills. We're going to give you specific tips on how to elevate all 6 skills so that you can create connection every single time. So it's 4 sections, relatively easy. The way that we teach is quite different. Now, Albert, I know it's funny that, not so funny, but people still walk into rooms and we see bad presenters on stage. But I also walk into trainings, not people who train with us, but people who give trainings that also put people to sleep because the information is not structured well. They're bad teachers. So the way that we have structured our class is very unique because we're out to optimize your learning and maximize retention. And this is how we build a session. So 4 sessions. What's great is we spend no more than half the time talking because that's all that a student would have time for. So it's not us talking you to sleep. It's us setting you up for the second half of this, which is a breakout room. You're going into a room. You're building your presentation. You're polishing your vision, your value, your vows. You're practicing your connection skills. And then between the sessions, there's at least a 30-minute break. We don't want you to continue experiencing Zoom fatigue. Right? Breaks are important. Any training company that does not value breaks is not doing a good job. So the way that we have created this really is crafted for the way people learn today, accelerated learning, and also the fact that we're on Zoom. Make it work for them. Don't put them to sleep. Albert, before I go on with this slide, you went through our training and you've been in many trainings. What's been your experience with how we train?
Very engaging. You can't, you usually can't go offline and just put yourself on mute and expect yourself not to participate.
Yeah. Learning is participation. So come in ready to do the work because we're going to put you to work because we are invested in your success. We want you to have a great next interview whenever that is. Albert's been over to my place and he's seen this in my office wall. And this is how we define Ohana. Right? These are the people that Albert recruits into his Ohana. It's also the same people we recruit into ours. Dreamers, doers, believers, thinkers. Because we have an agreement that we will always see the greatness within you, even when you don't see it within yourself. So there's 2 ticket prices, very affordable options. The general ticket, $97, get you in. For those of you that want recordings, who want a one-on-one coaching session, there's an all access level. So whatever level, I invite you to come into our room, get trained, get fully prepared to connect, create, communicate trust, and build relationships in your next interview. So now we come to my favorite part of any webinar, which is our Ohana coaching. So anything that we've covered, I'm going to go ahead and bring that on the screen, is fair game. Albert, I'll turn it over to you to moderate questions and coaching.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, if anyone wants to come on audio, I know Let's here, Aiko, you've all been very engaging in the chat section. And so I'm wondering if you'd like to come on screen and maybe do some coaching around your interview too. Interviewing. I know that Aiko actually asked earlier, when we write a cover letter, can we do this triangle that you had mentioned in the connection triangle?
Thank you, Aiko. It's really interesting that the written form and the verbal form are not so much different. In the curriculum, and I'm going to go back a couple of slides here. So in session 2, shared values, what you want to make sure is you communicate to the values that are in front of you. So for example, if you're writing a cover letter, do some research on what the company core values are so that you make sure you speak to those values. And when you show fluency in those values, you're going to show up as different. Even go the next step further. If you know who your interviewer is going to be, research them on LinkedIn. See if you can decipher what potential values they belong to them. And when you can speak to company values, their values, you're going to be a candidate that stands out. So Aiko, I hope that answers your question.
Barbara asks, how do you convey trust regarding longevity when you have had recent short stints but are looking for a company to settle down with? As you know, a lot of Bay Area workers are contractors, and that was me too for the first 5 years of my career. And so this is a challenge, I think, for a lot.
Okay, let's think about what the real question is. Okay, so conveying trust, and if you had several long stints, I think the real question, and Albert, I love your perspective too. I think this is a when question. When have you succeeded? It doesn't matter that you've been in short stints everywhere. What matters is this specific element of character, this specific value, does it make an appearance at every stop that you've been along the way? So longevity really doesn't matter. Consistency matters. What's your take on this, Albert?
Yeah, I think that sometimes when you go and you work at a job, it's simply for the project, right? And you're there to gain the experience, or you're there to help a company achieve a level of success. And what you always have to call back to when you're interviewing for any job is, why are you interviewing for that job in the first place? How does it connect where you've been to where you want to go? And if you're able to develop that sense of trust by connecting past to future, by making that company your present, then I think you have a much higher chance of being able to get the project despite the shorter stints. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Arav says, in technical interviews, there is very little time to connect. Interviewers, after an introduction, start talking technical. What is your recommendation to establish a connection during a technical interview? And I think this one's interesting for you, Anthony, especially since you worked in a very highly technical area for several years, especially when you worked abroad.
Absolutely. So for me, I was director of engineering both here in the US, and I was stationed in Geneva, Switzerland for a company called VeriSign, where I also interviewed for engineers in each one of those countries. And yes, I'm going to check you out for your technical skills, but I was going to check you out for what did that skill accomplish. More specifically, I'm looking for them to share with me a success story. So if you're being asked about your skill, right? When did you program something that you're proud of? What I want to hear is a story of not just, oh, wow, I created this cool piece of code, but this piece of code made an impact. And whatever that impact is what I remember, not your coding approach, because by that time, I would have expected, okay, you meet the bar in terms of technical skills, but did these skills create impact? Whether it's for your department, whether it's for a customer, whether it's for the industry. So in that short amount of time, yes, describe the skill, but also add the impact. That will create connection.
Good stuff. Ingrid asks, how do you work on yourself regarding feelings of intimidation? I am from a small country and I get super intimidated when speaking to high-level executives and my brain gets foggy. Any practical advice on how to move past that? And I know you've spent time in rooms with, people like Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk. And so I don't know if you experienced this at all, Anthony, but let us know.
Yeah, this element of getting starstruck, again, earlier in my career, yes, I've had the privilege of working with the gentleman that you mentioned, the Shark Tank judges. And what helps really is checking in with yourself and getting out of your head where you're thinking, this has got to be perfect. I've got to squish 100 words into 10 seconds. When I see you as a real person engaging in a real conversation, that's where it goes somewhere. So if you're with an executive, and I'm trying to think back to one of the earlier interviews I had. So I walked into an interview, and this is with the VP of sales. And I noticed on the wall, he had a huge picture of Fenway Park. It was an old school picture. So obviously, baseball is some sort of passion for him. And I said, I'm sorry to say I'm not a Red Sox fan, I'm a Giants fan. Are you going to hold that against me? And it's a conversation, it's nothing to do, but what you can see is for that VP, I'm just starting with a conversation. I don't care like if that demonstrates any skills. Really, if we look at the connection triangle, what I'm trying to do at that first point of connection is create a relatability or empathy in the first few moments. So keep it conversational and focus on the left side of the triangle. Create connection with the person in front of you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that when it comes to being able to make that kind of connection and really see these executives as humans, that really matters. Like, I remember I had a former roommate in Orange County who was the business manager of Mark Victor Hansen, who, for those of you who may have grown up during the 90s, was the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And Mark is a very down-to-earth person, especially in the setting that I found him in, which was literally the kitchen of my roommate's house. And you just talk to him, shake his hand, say hello, and for a lot of these high-powered individuals, it's just keeping it simple and keeping it basic. Yeah. Another question asks, is there a way to communicate boundaries and collaboration when asked, what types of projects might you not take on these days?
Let's deconstruct this. There's
What
a
are they really
real
asking?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the real question? So let's invite the Ohana to contribute. So what is the real question behind this question in disguise?
I would say is what are you committed to doing, and what are you not committed to doing? What don't you believe that you can accomplish with us, and what do you believe that we can accomplish with you, is what I hear.
Good. Well, Albert is well versed in this, and every time we come into a situation like this, it always boils down to, if we take a look at the message blueprint, there's 3 bricks at the bottom. It's a vision question, it's a values question, or it's a vows question. And any brick is a good place to start. So Albert, you chose a brick, and it was a brilliant answer. I'm going to also choose one of the bricks, which is values. Right? What are the values that you stand for? Once I know what those are, I know why you'll say yes or no to a project. And I'll be okay with that. I will trust a person that will be a consistent stand for their values. I won't hold it against them. If I'm asking them to do something that's against their value set and they say no, and I'm even giving them more credit. If they consistently stand for a value, when I have a project that comes along, I will know which project to assign to which person because they stand for a particular value.
I know a lot of new graduates get asked a question that's about a variant of this, which is more so along the lines of, are you able to do this particular task, whatever that task might be? And I remember as a new graduate 10 years ago, 12 years ago, having the answer of, I may not know how to do it today, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm really excited to learn, and I'll figure out how to do it. From the vision, values, and vows perspective, does that pass the smell test, or does it still need a lot more in order to inspire trust?
There's a couple things that come up for me as you're giving this answer.
Yeah.
Number one is there's a value of honesty. And Albert, that's something I know about you. Yeah. So if that's one of my values, honesty, transparency, right? You're going to score points. The second one is off of another brick, vowels, right? You can count on me to do the work, to study, to research, to be prepared for when that opportunity comes around again. So there is an improv in this situation as well. Right? Anything from vision, anything from values, anything from vowels is a good answer. Your job is to be able to improv these answers. And Albert, yes, it does pass the test.
I think you also need to say it in the right tone as well. Otherwise, you may come across as maybe desperately wanting the job, and no hiring manager wants that either.
Yes.
Let's see. Aiko asks, I served at the Ohio State University College of Medicine as a program manager, learning experience, technology, and as an instructional designer. When I moved here to the Bay Area in 2018, I took time to focus on my family. I am pivoting to the private sector. My struggle is not having corporate experience, and I have felt alone and invisible with imposter syndrome. To build community, I decided to work as a barista, also helping people to use meditation to elevate their experience in work, family, community, and ultimately serve better in their work. How do I break from that barrier? So what I'm hearing is someone who I think is in that similar boat for the last question I just answered, which is she's looking to break into private sector, and she's facing a lot of imposter syndrome because she's not sure how. And how does she overcome imposter syndrome in high tech when there are so many people who already work in tech here in the Bay Area? And I mean, you know, it can definitely feel that way where it's like you where you feel like you're the odd person out. Everybody knows the secret but you. And you're just standing there and you're wondering, what do I got to do to get into this party?
Yeah, Albert. And Aiko, thank you for asking that, because a lot of people are in that situation. And I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into what I do as a similar role as barista. Many people don't know this, but every Sunday, I'm a volunteer. I volunteer in the AV booth and I manage a soundboard. And I do it because we live stream every Sunday. Now, that's a volunteer gig. It may not have anything to do with me being a communications coach. So what do I do? What in the heck do I do as a sound engineer that qualifies me to become a communications coach? Aiko, what do you do as a barista? There is a transferable skill. So instead of imposter syndrome, be resourceful. What are the skills that you have as a barista that could translate well into the position that you're doing? So I'm going to just play around. As a sound engineer, I spend every Sunday listening for every sound, every voice that comes to a stage, to blend it into a conversation for an audience, right? So think about that. If I were going for a comms job, a PR job, it's like, oh, you actually listen to what people say and you can blend voices into a united conversation. I think you might have a chance at this job. So there are things that are your superpowers. They come out in your role as a barista. So instead of stepping into imposter syndrome, step into, these are great skills that I have. As a barista, I'm a great conversationalist. I'm a great listener. I provide excellent customer service. I create a, let's say, Ohana experience in every conversation. Wow, you might make a good whatever role that you have. So Albert, anything more that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely the transferable skills that you mentioned and being able to take one element into another. So Aiko says that she cultivates deeper relationships with every customer she meets. And in a lot of ways it's like the sales that you do, right? And so when you are figuring that whole part out, it's all about being able to provide that level of customer success that is that you can translate when it comes to, say, instead of selling coffee, you're selling software. All right, Bennett also asks, and I know we're past the top of the hour. Do you have a little bit of extra time, Anthony?
Yeah, let's hang out.
All right. Bennett asks, the question, where do you see yourself in 5 years, can be tricky. I've received many different opinions as how to best answer this question. One advice is to be real and say exactly where I'd like to see myself. Another advice is to play it safe by simply saying, quote, first, I will focus on excelling at the task at hand and would like to grow into the role with more responsibilities. What's your advice in how to best respond to this somewhat tricky question while still building trust? I like to see this as a vows question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And
Yeah.
and I like to see it as saying that actually it's actually all three, because your vision is where you see yourself as the future. Your values are how you see your values with this particular job, aligning with where you're going forward as a human being. And your vows are what you're willing to do to become a really good employee in the next however long you have. And so it's not entirely about saying, oh, I'm going to become your employee of the year next year. It's about saying, like, based on my past experience in doing the work that I've done, I see myself doing the following things here for you if you decide to hire me, or when you hire me. You also obviously want to attract it. So I see myself doing the following three things when you hire me. And based on your hiring me, the following things I expect to happen. And because those things happen, I see myself in this position afterwards. And that builds trust because it shows me that you not only see the job in front of you as a job, you see it as a mission that aligns with a greater mission. And because those two align and you understand what's at stake, stake is something that I talk about a lot. They can see that you understand what the main problem is. And because you understand what the main problem is, and maybe the people you're competing with don't understand the problem as well, the person who understands the problem best and has a solution to that problem is ultimately the person who gets hired.
And Albert, what I'll add to that, the shared vision. Okay, that's going to be the clue.
Yeah.
What is the shared vision that you have with the interviewer?
Mm-hmm.
So what's a picture? If you had a phone and you played time traveler and you were able to transport yourself 5 years into the future, like Dr. King transported 50 years in the future and took a snapshot.
Yeah.
What's in that snapshot? So I'm going to give you an example of my executive clients who train with me every week. My vision, shared vision, that's theirs as well, is they're on a national stage. So this is either a TEDx, South by Southwest, industry keynote. Okay. So they've given their best presentation. Standing ovation happens. There's people lined up at the edge of the stage, can't wait to continue the conversation. So that's a shared vision. I'll buy into it because I'm going to make that happen. If they get into the gym every week with me, that's a vision they are working towards as well. So to the best of your ability, what's that picture that you can put up there that causes not just an intellectual connection, but an emotional connection?
I would say that being able to share your vision, vows, and your values to yourself is ultimately what will help you share your vision, values, and vows to the company that you want to work with, even if the vision that you have for yourself is to just get any job. You might have remembered me 7 years ago before I realized that cloud software and working in HR was cool, that my mission in life was to find a job, just to have a job. And for people on Albert's list, I'm cool with that too, because some of us need to pay rent. We have children to feed, we have mortgages to pay. And so if you need a job that pays X thousands number of dollars and you can get off at 5 p.m., fantastic. I think that when it comes to that, if your vision and your values and your vows is to be able to get an honest day's work and be able to do something that you're good at, and your vow is to do high quality work at the end of the day, I think that's honorable as well. I know that one of the things, and I talk about this in my presentations all the time, and I know you hear them, Anthony, is that a lot of millennials like to say, do something you love and you'll never do a day of work in your life. And I mentioned how toxic and poisonous all of that is, and it can be kind of to a certain degree. Um, and so for those of you who may be watching and wondering, and saying like, I just need a job. I'm down to my last 3 months of savings, and this COVID pandemic is hitting me really hard in my pocketbook. I just want to let you know that it's okay to also develop your own messaging framework around finding a job simply for survival as well. And I was wondering if you had any of your own thoughts on that too, Anthony.
Yeah, there's an element of, in moments of adversity,
Yeah.
people are going to will remember you for how you showed up in these moments.
Mm-hmm.
So, if it is, I have to take this job for now, that's okay, right? I will remember you because there are priorities, vows that you're living up to,
Yeah.
because you have to take care of yourself, of your family. And there's also other ways, right? You have a choice between this job and this job, and you chose the lower paying one because it was aligned with your values. So think about that. How will you be remembered during these times? Because number one, it is social proof later on. And
Yeah.
number two, you'll feel good because every decision is made from the foundation of vision, value, vows. If you deviate from that, it's not a sustainable lifestyle. But if you always come from those three, it's always a good choice.
Yeah. Tyler actually asks a question that's very similar to that, and he thinks that my facial expression answered it, but not quite. He asks, would you recommend against working for a company that doesn't align with your personal values in order to learn important skills? So I guess, for example, if a company that makes cigarettes came to me and said, Albert, we really love your potential, your attitude, and we want to hire you to become a digital marketer, and you'll get to learn everything from how to run Facebook ads to how to do large scale conferences and webinars. And you're going to be the most all around marketer when you're done with this after 3 years. But we sell cigarettes, and you know what cigarettes do to people. Would you take that job? It would be very difficult for me because I would be putting ads out there saying, oh, with this cigarette, you can feel this way, feel that type of lifestyle. But on the other hand, I'm also thinking, okay, it's 3 years of my life. Maybe I sell my soul for a couple of years here, and I learn the good ins and outs of digital marketing, and I can cleanse my soul when I'm done with this whole thing. What are your thoughts on that?
It is a difficult question, and it's not the real question. I
What
would
is
say
the
the real question,
Yes.
the real question is, how resourceful are you?
Mm-hmm.
If you only found two options, or this is the only option you've found, I'd say you're not looking hard enough.
Yes.
I would say there's a growth mindset, abundance mindset. That's what you lean into. I would venture to say, and Albert, you could probably back me up, digital marketing. There's tons of digital marketing opportunities out there.
There
If
are.
you only found one with a cigarette company, I'd say you weren't looking hard enough. Would you agree?
That's true. That's true. I'm thinking like, what would happen if I applied to numerous companies, had numerous interviews, and the one left over was the one that made tanks, That would be that would be a very interesting. I would probably tell myself that perhaps for all of these other companies, I may not have shared my vision, values, and my vows in a way that was impactful enough for them to say, yes, we want to hire him to do digital marketing for us at this nonprofit, at this social impact company, et cetera, what have you.
Albert, you've hit upon a genius nugget of wisdom. Is the more you talk about it out there, to not just to the interview, but to everybody, your friends, your mentors, your advisors, people in the Albert's list Ohana, the more people know your vision, value, vows, the more they will be able to connect you with the right people, with the right opportunities. So Albert, right on to that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think that that makes a lot of sense. And yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? We're definitely hitting the 75-minute mark. We appreciate all of you spending some extra time with us here as we spend some time coaching and spend some time talking through some of the scenarios that you may hit when it comes to interviewing. So let us know if you have anything else. Tammy says, "Thank you. This has been amazing." Barbara says, "Thank you for the empathy." And Aiko says that especially now, people are seeking community. So it's very, very good. Very, very
Albert,
good.
in terms of community, stay connected to Albert, stay connected to me. Albert's LinkedIn handle is Albert Chen, very easy.
Yep.
Mine is very easy as well, Heroic Voice.
Yep.
So connect with LinkedIn. If you have any more questions, we are Ohana. We're here for you.
And so before we close today, Anthony, I know that, we have 28 people here on the Zoom room, 9 people on Facebook Live. And so this is a pretty good opportunity to ask you, if they want a follow-up conversation with you, what is the homework they must complete for them to earn that opportunity?
Right. The homework assignment is attend one of our free Wednesday morning webinars where we take you into a deeper dive of this. Okay, so if you want to continue the conversation with me or any member of my team, there will be a deeper dive into this content every Wednesday morning at 8:30 a.m. events.heroicvoice.com. And then we can engage in additional conversation.
Sounds good. All right, I will send out the link for all of you to join us at 8:30 Pacific time tomorrow morning. You'll get it either in your Eventbrite mail, and you'll also get it on the comment section within the Facebook chat. And so, Anthony, any final words before I conclude and send everybody off to their Tuesday evening?
Biggest thing is vision. Of the 3 bricks, think about what Albert had in his head. What was the vision of this Albert's list that he was intending to create? And even those 5 years out, continue working on that vision, continue adding details, richness in that vision. You're going to be asked this question over and over and over, whether you're new in your career or whether you're late into your career, always have an answer.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for that last nugget of wisdom, and thank you all for joining us. I hope that you have an opportunity to capture the essence of Anthony's messaging framework and can apply it to any of your upcoming job interviews that you may be having. Our events continue with the summer hiring as we begin to anticipate the return of the economy. Over the next few months, we're going to have a couple of workshops covering everything from LinkedIn to finding a technical job with no experience to crafting your job hunt strategy and so much more. All of our events are on Eventbrite and also come with a coupon code. So if you're interested in getting that for up to 25% off, I'm happy to help you out there. And we look forward to welcoming you to all these events as we embark on our job hunt journey. Before then, we'll see you in the community with your introductions, your advice, and also your success stories. Until then, take care of yourself, stay on the grind, and good luck. Good night, everybody. All right, Facebook live stream is over. And I don't know if anyone wanted to stay any longer, but I guess this is the benefit of the Zoom room.
Yeah. This was fun, Albert.
Thank you. Yeah, this was very fun.
Great question, by the way.
Yeah, Vince said that he has an interview tomorrow, and we definitely just helped him prepare for it. So that's always good. Yeah. All right, wonderful. We can definitely, I'll be in touch with you, Anthony, and we'll talk soon.
Beautiful. We'll debrief. Congrats, Albert.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.